Welcome. Today we're going to talk about compound inequalities. Move right along. Compound inequalities. For OR graphs, it's in either graph, it's in the OR graph. In an AND, it has to be in both graphs to be in the AND graph. And here's what I mean by that. I usually do three graphs, one for each of the inequalities and one for the compounding of the inequalities. So, when I take this first one, x is less than or equal to -2. Here's -2, solid dot, arrow to the left. In the next one, x is greater than 7. Here's 7, open circle, arrow to the right. The OR graph, it only has to be in one of them to be in the answer. It's less than -2, so we include anything -2 and to the left. It doesn't include either of these graphs between them. It doesn't include 7, that's why there's an open circle, but it does include everything to the right. So that would be your final answer of this graph. Let's take a look at this one. Again, well, this one is greater than or equal to -2, so solid dot over -2, arrow to the right. In the next one, it's still x greater than 7, open circle to the right. And for the final one, neither of them have it below -2, so that's not going to be in our final graph. -2 is in this one, so it's in the graph above it. Now, 7 is not in this graph, but it is covered in this graph. So everything above -2 is in the OR graph. In this one, again, x is greater than or equal to -2, solid dot to the right. X is less than 7, so open circle, arrow to the left. Now, when we go to graph the OR graph here, if I start looking at sections, below -2 is in at least one of them. Yes, -2 is. Between -2 and 7 is. 7 itself is in at least one of them, and above 7 is in at least one of them. So really, everything, all real numbers, is another way to say that. Oops. But that's the graph of it. A line going in both directions. And graphs, remember, only where they overlap. You know how you used to see that color overhead where they took red and blue and overlapped them, and only in the part where it overlapped it showed purple. Well, in an AND graph, we only do the overlap part, not the extra parts. So, in this one, x is less than or equal to -2, greater than 7. Do these overlap? You could actually take this and just bring it down. Does that overlap with the other one? The answer is no. So there is no solution. And you'd actually have to write that out for this particular one because there is no graph. So no solution is how I'd like you to write it out. In this one, greater than or equal to -2, solid dot, arrow to the right. Greater than 7, open circle, arrow to the right. So when I get to this, the only part that's in both, -2 is not in both, between is not in both, 7 itself is not in both, but above 7 is in both. So we're going to say an open circle because that's not including 7, but above 7. And the other reason we use an open circle is to say everything right up to, but not including 7. Like 7.000001, that would be included, but 7 itself is not. All right, here's another one. Greater than or equal to -2, less than 7, The and graph. Now this is your typical and graph. The other two were more on the unusual side. This is the typical one. You have -2, you have 7. Below 7 is in this one. Above 2, -2 is in that one. -2 is in both, so I'm going to put a solid dot over -2. 7 is not in both, so I'm going to put an open circle. But everything in between is in both. So that's why we have a line connecting that solid dot and that open circle. So there are 3 kinds of graphs for ors and 3 ands. One kind of graph for or is going in opposite directions but having a space in between them. The other is going all in one direction, whichever one that happens to be. And the final one is all real numbers. For an and, no solution. The all real numbers and the no solution are the extremes. This is one option. Only in one direction, or in between 2 points. Now, with this graph, this is an OR graph, obviously. When I'm going to have to solve it first and then graph it. I have 2 things that I'm solving, 2 inequalities, connected with the word OR. When you do this, you have to do both out separately. N minus 8 greater than -7. I'm going to do that one alone. Add 8. N greater than 1. Now I'm going to do the other inequality. Let's see. 4 plus n less than -4. I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides. N is less than -8. So my answer is this. N is greater than 1 or n is less than -8. That whole thing has to be the inequality answer. Then we're going to do the graph answer. Now, when I do my graph answer, I've got my n greater than 1, n less than -8, or there's my 3 things. So here's, let's see, I want to do all of these. All right, so here is -8. Be careful not to put them too close together. These are a little close together for me. And here's 1. The graph of n greater than 1, open circle, arrow to the right. N less than -8, open circle, arrow to the left. The OR graph is the 2 graphs on one inequality, number line, I should say. So what we have in green here is your final answer. So I could say, maybe I'll extend it and I'll bring this down a little bit so that we have it a little separated. Oh, that's connected. All right. This is our OR, or graph answer. So we have our inequality answer and our graph answer. You have to have both. Here's our next one. Give this one a try on your own and try to graph it. All right, here we go. -8v minus 6 greater than 74. I'm going to add 6. Divide by -8. V is less than -10. On the other side, I have -5v plus 6 less than or equal to -39. I'm going to add 6. 5v less than or equal to negative 30. And divide by negative 5. V is greater than or equal to positive 6. All right. V less than negative 10. V greater than or equal to 6. Or. I spread these out a little bit better this time. Negative 10. 6. Let's graph it. Less than negative 10, greater than or equal to positive 6. The OR graph, open circle, arrow to the left over negative 10. Solid dot, arrow to the right over 6. There you go. That is your answer. And I didn't write it out. Let me write it out. V less than negative 10 or V greater than or equal to 6. I should have written that out in the beginning. It's best to write it fully once so that you can see the whole inequality answer and then write the graph. All right, here's our last inequality. Give it a try, see what you can do. Change the direction of the inequality, and k is less than or equal to negative 7, greater than or equal to 5, with an or in between, and there is your inequality answer, your graph, k greater than 5, k less than or equal to negative, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, and the OR graph. I like to make sure I line them up so that it's more obvious as to what's going on. Greater than or equal to 5, less than or equal to negative 7. The OR graph is both pushed down to one equation. And there is our final answer graph. Hopefully you got it right. Make that more of a 7. Okay. Here's our AND graphs. Now I really should have this one first. Let me do this one first, because I think this one is more traditional AND. So, solve each one separately like we did with the ORs. 3x minus 5 less than or equal to negative 2. Let's solve it. Add 5. 3x less than or equal to 3. Divide by 3. X is less than or equal to 1. And on the other one, 5 minus x less than or equal to 9. Subtract 5. Negative x is less than or equal to 4. And divide by a negative 1. X is greater than or equal to negative 4. This is my inequality answer, and then I'm going to graph it. X less than or equal to 1, x greater than or equal to negative 4, and graph. Let's see, we've got negative 4 and positive 1. Less than or equal to 1, solid dot arrow left. Greater than or equal to negative 4, solid dot arrow right. Where do they overlap? These only overlap between negative 4, positive 1, including the endpoints. And that would be your answer in this problem. In this one, it's a little different. So there are two inequalities implied here with the connecting word and, excuse me. And the first one is all the way through just before the next inequality symbol. If there are plus and minus, the entire middle goes with both sides, not just part of it. So negative 24 less than or equal to 4m. And the next side is from the inequality symbol, not including it, to the right. 4m less than 28. Now when I solve this, I can switch it around first if you like. Oops. 4m, have to change the direction of the inequality, negative 24, so greater than or equal to negative 24. And then I can go ahead and solve it by dividing by 4. M is greater than or equal to negative 6. Over here, we have a connecting word of and divide by 4. M is less than 7. So there's my inequality. M greater than or equal to negative 6. M less than 7. And I know it might seem like a pain to put in these inequality graphs, the number lines, but it really is very helpful to see the actual graph happening. Greater than or equal to negative 6, solid dot arrow right. Less than 7, open circle arrow left. The and is where they overlap, which is between the two in this situation. Solid dot, open circle line between them, and there you have your graph. Give this one a try, see what you can do, and then we'll graph it. All right, so the first up to there, negative 1 less than or equal to n over 8, and let's do the other side from here over. N over 8 is less than or equal to 0. These symbols are usually the same symbol, and it's typically less thans, but it doesn't have to be. It should, I like it that way. I think it's best that way. Now, I'm going to rewrite this. N over 8 is greater than or equal to negative 1, and then I will solve it. To solve this, I have to get rid of dividing by 8. I multiply by 8. N is greater than or equal to negative 8. Here I'm going to multiply both sides by 8, but it doesn't really change it. It makes it n less than or equal to 0. With and in between, this is my inequality. N greater than or equal to negative 8, n less than or equal to 0, and let us graph these. Negative 8, negative 8, negative 8, 0, 0, 0. First graph, greater than or equal to negative 8, less than or equal to 0, and they overlap between the two, negative 8, 0, line between them. And there you have compound inequalities. Have a great day.